It's time to kill some consoles. With a GTX 960 Super Clocked Edition, a terabyte of storage, a 6-core AMD processor, and Windows 8.1 and monitor included just for £650, this really is the console killer. This will be able to play any game at 1080p 60fps on high to ultra settings, maybe even with some anti-aliasing. And for £650 it's nearly the exact same price as a console, TV and controller. Now this doubles up as an actual PC, it's not just a console for gaming, so there's that added bonus. Now because of the price bracket, we've had to cut back on a few things. Let's be brutally honest, we can't. Honestly, if we had a little bit more money, I would have gone with the Intel 4460 because I would rather have an Intel quad-core processor. But for this price bracket, we have to go with other things. We have to skimp on a couple of things, but we can also upgrade it in the future. So let's kick off with the processor. We have an AMD FX 6300 Black Edition 6-core with 8MB of level 3 cache and 6 of level 2 cache. This is a 925W TDP and is at £87 for a 6-core processor. It's a couple of years old now, but it's got good reviews and stuff and should be okay. There's not really anything competing within the price bracket. You could go with an i3 or a Pentium, but I would rather have more cores at this price bracket than less cores. So that is the processor. For the motherboard, we've gone with the ASRock 970 Pro 3. This supports AMD AM3 Plus sockets. It's an ATX board. Can have Crossfire but can't have SLI. Has some USB 3 ports, 4 of them in fact. SATA 3 ports, 6 of them. DDR3 up to 32GB of it. And it's an okay board, and in this price bracket it's really all you're going to get for £54. You can't really ask for much more than this. If you want to go for something different, you'd have to step up at least another £20 or £30 just to get a little bit more, and it doesn't impact too much on difference. So we're going to have to stick with this. Nothing wrong with it, it's a perfectly good board, so you should be fine with it. As I've said in previous videos, RAM is a little bit different. Just choose your most trusted brands, see which one is cheapest and go with that. Now I'm going to point out it's actually cheaper if you look here, because I'm getting it through different websites, but I'm showing it through Amazon because I find it a little bit easier and much clearer layout. So we've got the Corsair, lots of numbers, Vengeance RAM, 2 sticks of 4 gigs, 1600 megahertz. As I've said, megahertz doesn't really affect speed or anything. For 40 quid, you can't get much better and cheaper than this. It's a perfect kit and will do you absolutely fine. You can throw another 8 gigs if you need to, but I'd rather spend that extra money on the 8 gigs on a new processor. So yeah. Fine, RAM should do you perfectly fine, no problem with it. And you can have it different colours as well. Red, black, blue or green. That's not green, that's like a gold. Moving on to storage with the CK Barracuda 3.5 inch 1TB hard drive. This is as cheap as hard drives get. I could have, if you want to spend an extra 10 quid, get a Western Digital, but these are perfectly fine. There's not really many bad reviews if you look here. Most of them are 5, 4, 3 stars, so you don't really have to worry too much. This hard drive has a terabyte, which will be plenty for any games you want to play. Unfortunately, this price bracket, we can't really get an SSD, but hey ho, it's not the end of the world to be really honest. Time to get to the soul of this PC. We have the GTX 960 Super Clocked Edition for £158. Now this really is as good as you can get. It's reduced, so you might as well buy it. This comes super clocked at 1.28 GHz as a base clock and boost clock of 1.35. Comes with 2 GB of GDDR5 RAM. Now you're not going to be playing any higher than 1080p on this PC, so you don't really need to worry about having more than 2 GB. But if it really does affect you, spend an extra 30 quid and get the 4 GB version. But then you start when you spend that much money, it's only £50 more and you got a 970. So this will be fine. 1080p all day, max settings, you should be fine. The CPU should be able to keep up with it, and you're going to have a pleasant experience beating console people. For the case, we've gone something with good build quality, sturdy design, and lots of airflow. So we've gone with the Corsair Carbide Series Spec 1. My brother has the big version of this, the Spec 3, and its cable management is a little bit shoddy, but it's just because my brother's really bad at it. You can tuck all the cables around the back perfectly fine. Has 2 fans at the front, 2 at the top and 1 at the back, so you've got plenty of airflow. But if you really do want to upgrade from about 10 quid, I think it is, or 5 quid, just get this version. Much bigger, much more room and stuff, but if you want to save a couple of quid, you can get this one, you'll be perfectly fine. Moving on to the power supply, this is nothing special. I don't like the sleeves that it's wrapped in, but hey ho. It's a weird colour, it looks like it's all green and stuff, but this is a 500 watt 80 plus bronze. At this price point, if you want to get a gold, you got to add another 30 quid. So, no. The bronze is perfectly fine. Most, as you can see here, most of the reviews are 5 stars. There's only a couple of 1 stars. But hey ho, this will do perfectly fine for your system, will power it very, 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 very well. And you won't need to worry about anything like that. So, this is the perfect power supply if you want to change it up, if you want to go with a Corsair one, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to point out that the wattage of this build is 384 watts, so I wouldn't go much lower than 450. You would probably skimp by with a 430, but no, as you've noticed, I have no CPU cooler because you're not really going to be overclocking at this price bracket. If you really are going to be overclocking, then you need to really invest a little bit more in the processor motherboard for that, and that's going to be another 100 quid. So let's move on to the operating system. We have Windows 8.1. That's all I've got to say about it. Moving on to the fans, we have what is my go-to fan, the Corsair Air Series SP120 Quiet Edition. My brother has again these in his PC and they work absolutely fine. He has no problem with them at all. They're really, really, really quiet. And they are really good at moving airflow. There's not really much to say about the fan. And they're only 21 quid for 2. You only need 2 because this already comes with 2. Now for the monitor, we've gone with a 1080p 60 FPS or 60 Hertz monitor for 90 quid. It's really good value. My brother has a 27 inch and he likes it a lot. He says it's really good. The colour contrasts are quite good and there's not a lot of options to fiddle with it, but for 90 quid, you can't really argue with it. Otherwise, you got to go, if you want a 144Hz monitor, that's another 100 quid. And if you want a 1440p monitor, that's another 200 quid. So this is a really good monitor for the price bracket, and it's a #1 bestseller. The final thing is the keyboard and mouse, which I'm going to include in this, and it's just the Cooler Master UK Devastator bundle. This comes with the mouse and keyboard for 35 quid. Absolutely fine. As I've said, keyboard and mouse is personal preference. If you want something different, then make something different. Or if you've got a keyboard and mouse that you've already got, which you want, and you're just upgrading the PC, use them. This is just an add-on, so everything included, as I've shown, comes to £652. This is a really good PC. It's not the sweet spot for price to performance, but it's not far off it. It's a really good PC. I would happily recommend this to anyone. The only modification I would probably make is probably to the CPU. You could get a CPU, you could get the Intel i5 4460, so this would be, then it would ramp up to a £700 build. But then the motherboard for it is only £51, and it's a really good motherboard, which my brother's got. So, you know, it's up to you. It's 138 quid at the minute, which is about £50 more than this. So if you want to ramp up another £50 to get that i5, I probably would recommend it because I really like that i5. My brother really likes it. He says it's really good. It does properly well. But this will do you perfectly well. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you found this useful. If you're going to do this build, I'd highly recommend following this. As you can see, most of our budget has gone to the graphics card, but that's where it needs to go in. And the monitor. And this normally you see like console killer for $500 or console killer for $600. And then they exclude the $700 Windows 8, they exclude the monitor for $100, and they exclude the keyboard mouse. So it ends up being, instead of like a $600 build, it'll be a $900 build. So for $650 for absolutely everything, that's equivalent to about $800. This will do you perfectly fine. Hope you've enjoyed, guys, and I'll see you very soon with another build guide.